By now, if you guys haven't heard of the brand Bonnell, you're likely living under a rock because they are developing some of the coolest electric dirt bikes that we have ever put our eyes on. Those bikes are currently being tested and will likely be available early next year. But right now in existence is the Bonnell 775 MX. You guys have probably seen me and a lot of other athletes ride that bike quite a bit, and a lot of people throughout the world are now getting their hands on them. One of the most fun, legit electric mountain bike, dirt bike hybrids out there. But today I want to talk about that bike's little brother, a bike that hasn't gotten much recognition yet, but definitely deserves it because I actually ride that bike more than the MX itself. This is the Bonnell 775 AM. Now you might be asking yourself, why is a moto dude on an electric dirt bike channel reviewing an electric mountain bike? Truth be told, the answer is actually quite simple. I ride these bikes all the time to cross-train for riding a dirt bike. Now there are tons of benefits to riding a bike like this if you're a dirt bike rider, but the coolest thing about this bike in specific, and the reason I'm reviewing it today, this is an electric mountain bike developed by Moto guys. Bonnell is a company that is producing some of the most insane electric dirt bikes right now. Those bikes are currently in testing and development, and I've had my hands on this bike for a couple months, have put over 500 miles on it, and I absolutely love this machine. In fact, I ride it more than I ride the Bonnell MX, and I ride it more than I ride my normal dirt bikes because of how accessible it is to get it out onto the trail. So I want to take you guys through why this is my weapon of choice when it comes to the electric mountain biking world, and show you some of the really cool features that make this bike so appealing for a moto guy, or even just a traditional mountain bike guy, to get this bike instead of all of the other, and there's a lot of them, electric mountain bikes in the world. Let's dive into the display and a couple of the epic features that this has. This is the first screen that you're going to see. In the center you'll have your speedometer. Below that you'll have your modes and levels. When you click the up and down arrows, that is what is going to adjust your modes and levels there. Then you've got the clock on the right side, and then a big battery bar that wraps all the way up around the left side of the screen. You can also see a checkered flag. That means you are in race mode on the bike. You have two options between race mode and street mode. If you click the M button, that switches you over to the next view that provides quite a bit more data. You can see at the bottom of the screen, I've got a heart rate monitor that is attached to this bike. That heart rate monitor is on my person right now. Super cool that I get to see that while I'm riding and understand what heart rate zones I'm in while I'm out here training. This screen mainly shows you the trip, mileage, power output and cadence while you're riding. You've got your level on the left side and the battery bar in the same area that it was before. Now your speedometer is up at the top of the screen, and you'll have an average miles per hour on the right side. Clicking the M button again brings me to this menu, which is going to show you quite a few different things like your motor temperature, your controller temperature, your motor torque on the top right, your motor RPM on the top left, and your battery bar is now dead in the center. It also shows you your modes and levels and your miles per hour. So you've got 3 different views depending on what you want to do, and a ton of adjustability within the actual display. You can switch to race or street mode here. You can adjust the brightness of the screen. There's more settings like, do you want your battery to show voltage or percentage? Under the bike setup, you can set up what kind of units it's in, so either metric or imperial. You can adjust if you want 3, 5, or 9 assist levels in this menu, and you can have an auto off if the bike sits without being utilized for a short period of time. You can adjust how long that is. Below that, you can adjust the clock. You can see what firmware is on it in the system. You can set a password so that people can't turn on this bike and use it. However, it is a pedal bike, so you could still pedal it away. And then you can connect certain things like an Apple AirTag, so you can find your bike with your cell phone, or the Bluetooth for the actual heart rate monitor like I have set up in this now. Coming back out to the main menu, I can come all the way down to a trip menu. So there's all sorts of cool features and functions within the display itself to get this bike to do what you want it to, but there's also a ride control app that allows you to adjust many different things about how the bike actually feels while you're riding. Truth be told, I've been riding this bike on pretty much factory settings, and I absolutely love how it feels. But another incredible thing about this bike is how powerful it is. This is one of the most powerful pedal assist mountain bikes out there. It starts out as a class 2 machine. As you might have picked up, it has a thumb throttle on this bike. I'm gonna get more into the thumb throttle when I'm actually out there riding it, but to talk you guys through a couple of different class systems, this starts out as a class 2 bike, which means you can go up to 20 miles per hour with pedal assist and up to 20 miles per hour utilizing the throttle. Now, sadly, the laws say if you go up to a class 3 bike, which this bike is more than capable of doing, that is a 28 mile per hour pedal assist only. So you cannot actually use the throttle at that point. And if you switch it over to 28 miles per hour in the app, it sadly disables the throttle. Now, that's quite the bummer that there are class systems in the mountain biking world, but currently, that's what we have to abide by. The bike is far more capable than just 28 miles per hour. This powertrain is rated much higher than that. At the moment, you have to make the decision between a class 2 bike and a class 3 bike, which is a really cool deciding factor that you get to choose for yourself. No additional costs, no gimmicks, nothing like that. Simply buy the bike and you can decide if you want it to be a class 2 or class 3. There's some awesome advantages to having a throttle on this bike, and I'm going to talk about that while I'm out there riding it today. And I'll be riding in class 2, and I've chosen to keep my bike in class 2 because I think that is the best of both worlds, because that throttle has some amazing advantages to it. Now, like I mentioned before, this bike being one of the most powerful mountain bikes out there, it is rated up to 1200 watts. You can output 1200 watts on this thing. That is a huge amount of power. If you guys have ever pedaled an electric assist mountain bike, you don't need 1200 watts when it comes to pedaling it. The Bonnell 775 MX, the twist throttle version, is a 6000 watt or 6 kilowatt bike. That's because it's much more like a Moto. This one is much more like an electric mountain bike, just a traditional electric mountain bike. And it's super cool that you have that much power at your disposal. Even though chances are you're probably not gonna ride it at that power, it is awesome that this bike runs that. This bike only costs $4,295. Super good price for an electric mountain bike in today's market. Now, a lot of prices on electric mountain bikes have been coming down, but this is by far one of the most powerful ones that you're gonna get at that price point. And I know to you mountain bikers and you moto enthusiasts, you're thinking, well, there's gotta be a reason that price is so low, right? Well, there is. This is a steel frame bike, but that also means it's extremely tough. It is not a carbon frame. It's not gonna break like a carbon frame does, especially when you've got this much power, you're gonna want that strength added. That does increase the weight a bit, but it's kind of negligible in my opinion. How much I've been riding this bike, I enjoy riding it way more than my lighter weight mountain bikes because of the geometry. They absolutely nailed that. You've got a sport and a comfort setting in the shock. Your suspension is SR Suntour, which is known as a cheaper brand, but this new SR Suntour Duralock suspension in the front and the Tri-Air in the rear has actually really surprised me at how capable it is. And like I said, I've been hounding on this bike for over 500 miles and it has not had any issues whatsoever for me. I actually love how it feels and I haven't wanted to change anything. This bike is bone stock aside from some Tannus Armour Tire inserts. If you guys need Tannus Armour for your mountain bikes, use my code, it's BrettB35 on their website. You can get hooked up and get cheaper Tannus Armours for your machine, and you want them because they will save your rims over time. But there's a couple of other components on this bike that are a little bit cheaper, which is why that price point's so low, like a Tektro derailleur. But that derailleur, once again, has held up really well for me. I've retuned it a couple times, but very minor adjustments to get it back to working and shifting well. It hasn't had any issues beyond that point, which is really surprising considering how powerful this bike is. But derailleurs are 1 in 1,000, so it's easy to upgrade that if you want to. It's got a really nice dropper post. The quality of that's actually really high. I would never change that. And it's got Magura MT5 brakes. These brakes have actually surprised me a lot. They're extremely consistent, but the biggest reason why Bonnell spec'd these brakes is because you can flip them side by side to whatever orientation you want. So if you're a diehard mountain biker, you might run your rear brake on your right hand. If you're a moto rider, you're gonna want the rear brake on the left hand. Super easy to just flip those to whatever side you want them to be without having to do any bleeding. That's why a mountain bike designed by a moto guy, it's pretty cool. Beyond that, like I mentioned briefly, the geometry is insane. This is one of the most planted, best feeling, best handling, extremely good cornering bikes that I've ever seen. And another cool thing is you've got adjustable rear end length, which means I can make the rear end a bit longer or shorter. I've got it in the short mode, which is why it corners so well, but you can lengthen it if you want even more stability at high speed. All sorts of cool features, so much to talk about. Sorry I've been talking so much. Let's get out and ride because this bike is so sick and I just want to get on it instead of talk. Well guys, I'm starting my ride and I'm going to give you 3 different perspectives. I've got a helmet mount that I'll put on at the top for the downhill. I've got this handlebar mount that's facing towards me. I might turn this to face towards my thumb throttle so you guys can actually see me using that. And then I've got the brand new GoPro Max 2. First time trying this POV camera. It's a full 360 8K camera. It'd be cool to try it out. So a chesty, a helmet cam, and a view facing either me or the thumb throttle. I'm beginning my ascent, which is why I'm already getting winded, but if I turn this bike up, chances are I can pedal without even breaking a sweat. And you know, truth be told, most people don't want to watch somebody pedal all the way up a trail, so I'm not going to make you guys watch that, but I will turn this stuff back on when it comes to the downhill portion and let you know how that goes. But in terms of a pedal assist bike, this thing is incredible. I absolutely love how easy it is to flick between modes right here on my thumb and how I can actually see my heart rate as I'm riding so I can maintain zone training if I want to do that. Well guys, here I am at the top of a pretty gnarly trail. I'm going to change this view over to look at the thumb throttle over here on the side. That way you guys can see when I actually utilize this thumb throttle. Let's go ahead and hit a pretty gnarly trail. This trail is going to be quite slick today, I get the feeling, so let's go ahead and drop in. Just getting a feel for things, and this bike rips. So I usually just use that thumb throttle to carry momentum over areas that are rather difficult to pedal in. So I actually almost never use it on the uphills. I primarily use it on the downhills because it is such a momentum saver. You can carry just such an unreal amount of speed on this bike. And even though it's a heavier frame, it doesn't feel heavy. because it's got so much power. In fact, that weight just feels more stable. So even as I'm blitzing through a ton of mud and slick stuff, this bike is maintaining its composure. It's got so much traction. That is gnarly. So slick. I'm getting so muddy, but this bike is just plowing through it. Even over the chatter, this bike performs so well. The suspension tune just allows you to hold traction. That is so necessary for slippery conditions like this. Oh yeah, buddy. So sick. Pretty nasty out here right now, especially in these trees. How gnarly. Hi guys.
Do you by chance know how to change a tire?
I do, yeah.
A few moments later.
The geometry of this bike is the most comfortable and most aggressive, nice handling bike that I have ridden to date. I don't say that lightly. I've ridden a lot of bikes. This is a bike that the moment I hopped on, I was comfortable riding, and that's a huge statement and a huge confidence builder. So absolutely love that for the Bonnell. There's a lot of pros to this bike. There are a few cons. The cheaper derailleur is a con, but it shifts well. You just have to stay on top of maintaining it. The suspension is not your high tier premium EXT or Fox or RockShox, but this SR Suntour, this is the top end of the line of SR Suntour suspension, and they did do a really good job on that. It is really, really capable, and you know, I've ridden a lot of other SR Suntour. This suspension feels extremely different, and like they did something really well, so that is quite awesome. You know, although there's a couple of cons to this bike, the price point alone outweighs all of those cons. It's such a good price bike for the performance, the battery. Oh, it's a swappable battery, by the way, so that's super cool. You get to swap your battery. You can have the option of a long range battery if you want it. I'm opting for the short range battery to keep the bike a little bit lighter, but I still get plenty of ride time. When I'm riding in the lower modes, I get easily over 40 miles of pedaling, easily. In these high modes, because you can output up to 1200 watts, you know, that's obviously going to go down depending on how aggressive you're being. But for me, I get at least 2 hours on the bike, at least, every time I go out and ride without any sort of range anxiety, and that's all I care about. That's my training interval, is those 2 hours. So to get that much ride time, this battery sits perfectly where I want it to be, and that is so much fun that you get to have on the trail. I also get to have a ton of fun not only going downhill but climbing. So I've truly enjoyed my experience on this bike so far.